Hello guys and welcome back. Now I'm going to talk a little bit briefly about what I got going on here. Obviously I've got a big ass mess but what I'm doing is I'm actually setting these pieces up to actually sheet the actual bottom of the flap. Now, some guys asked me, and maybe I didn't make it very clear, and I'm glad that a lot of you guys messaged me and asked me about how did you prep that to get those so strong, get the edges done. And so I'm going to show you a before and after. Actually, I'm going to show you a before and what I do. Now, if you look, guys, I built these blocks in, and that is not the prettiest of a joint, but it'll be fine because we're going to cap that off. But what I'm going to do here, this is an aileron, and I've already pre-cut where all these hinges lines go because I've got to cap this front, okay? But in order to get these hinge blocks fairly strong, I've actually put them in long, and yes, I've already drilled these, so, and I test fit them and they work well. And then I will cap that and round that off. And a lot of you guys know about that. But I didn't show it. Evidently, I looked through the old footage and I did not see this. So basically what I'm showing you here is I shot this line on this thing, okay? Now, this is a long piece, and it's because I didn't like the way that was configured on the other side, so I did it this way. And basically what we're wanting to do is get this line. You're gonna have to shoot. Let me see if I can get this thing to sit up without falling over. I hope you can see this. I'll prove this out. But anyway, guys, basically this line will go, but basically what you want to do is take a piece of wood like so and look inside it like this, and see where that line is going to actually come on any part of this you do. And basically what it will come up is that you're going to use any kind of a hard bar center. Don't use a wood block on this, it doesn't work very well. But basically what I'm going to do is come up and sand all these ribs in here, and then use these ribs to true that up like so. If you can see that, you want that bevel right there straight. So what happens is that when you do put the sheet on it and glue it, you get, let me get on the other side, it's easier to see. Basically what will happen is when that is actually glued on and glued in there, you're gonna have a really nice glue joint like this. And you always want to run this over a little bit. Don't try to butt it up. It just really goofs it up. But this is going to be the bottom of your flap. And as you can see, when you go and you sand this off, you'll be able to round that off a little bit or sharpen it up or anything you want to do. And then in turn, I don't like to make my ends sharp. I'll leave them like that and like that. So basically what will happen here is I will go ahead and get this ready to glue. Now what I'm doing here also is I'm actually coming in and I'm marking the area right here where all these go. And this stuff just comes right out like so. And this is something, before I glue it on there, I will actually test fit this again just to make sure, because once you glued it, you're final. And what you want to do here is come up here and mark the centers of all these pockets, and that is if you do them this way. Now, I think one of the biggest things I like to do is I will go and actually grab the mic, and I will actually measure, that one is 11 millimeter. So I will go actually a little bit past that, 14 millimeters. And just write 14 millimeter. And I am been going a little bit more with the metric stuff on here. I'm finding it actually, that one could be about And I'm going to 14 seems to be the magic number. So 14. And just double check it. Make sure you're getting into where it's over. 14 millimeters is really good on that, and it works. So I write 14s on there as millimeter on in here, so I know exactly where they're at. And again, I will double check this because you're going to wind up buying a new flat kit if you screw it up too much. But then again, what I'll do is, I know you can't see what I'm really doing here. This is kind of a time in life where a cameraman or somebody that would hold the phone would be really good, but we're working it. Now what I'm doing here is double checking all the fitment on this. And it's like I said, I've got this so that these actually do sit up a little bit over. I'll show you this. And what I'm doing here is I'm actually test fitting these. Now I'll take a 30 seconds piece of plywood and set these underneath these tails. And all I'm doing is checking. This is not the part. Hold on just a second. And you get a couple clamps, hold that straight. And then I use, basically what I'm doing here now is I'm using the thickness of the sheeting to double check before we go and glue this, because it's a nightmare to do if you don't. And what I'm doing here is using a piece, I'm just using a piece of 1/4 inch, and this is kind of like a go, no-go gauge. That's what I'm doing. And what this is going to do is going to ensure the fact that I've got the hinges cut to the proper length before we glue them in. And as you can see, they're set real nice and straight. And this is how I'm doing this, just to double check it. Now, I want to make sure that we're flush, and then we'll line everything up when it's done. It should line up really nice. But anyway, the main thing is here, this piece will get glued on here, but I've got to do a little bit of creativity right in there, and that's very simple. And what I'm gonna have to do to make this work is actually cut a little bit on there. And if you do it this way, basically with this cut off right here, it is actually right. But what I'm doing here now is actually I'm going to come back and glue this one on after I've done the sheet. You can do this any way you want to, but this is just how I'm doing it. And this also gives me an opportunity to check and make sure that I don't have any waves in it. Now this does move down considerably, and it looks like it's going to work pretty good. I'm pretty confident in it anyway. And basically with this and that, all these pieces that go in, you just want to make sure that you're making sure that you're using enough clamps to keep the alignment right. Moving it around, it'll do that, but this will be fine. And then this is basically a lot of trial and error in fitting on this. Now, the next thing I will do is I will actually rip a piece wild of this, and I will actually pre-form it, pre-sand it, put it on so there's no ridge in there. And I do that with a piece of tape, and I'll make 2 panels on this, okay, so that we're looking like that. This panel here will be wide enough to go that way, but it won't be wide enough in here. And it's just a simple piece, and I'll make these, and that's my goal for today, is get all these sheeted and actually get in to where I can sand this out and then get the one sheet that goes from here to here, and then again from here to there. And then basically what I'll be doing here when I do this is actually clamping a piece of wood down on this so that I can get the exact straight line. I'm still waiting on my plywood for my gear blocks, and I don't want to fill this area up. But what I am going to do is go ahead and get part of this done. And these will actually be glued in before I glass it. I will glass around those, and it actually works out really nice. And you can do it afterwards. I'm doing it so I can make sure that I have absolutely no spots in anything, that everything's going to work fine. And again, you want to double check this, because these really are not a huge problem here on this part of this, because these can be cut down to fit and just set in at will. But I do have some holes to drill through it to make sure that there's enough bite. So getting these set up is actually very simple. It works out very nicely. But you want to make sure that you're doing a lot of the things that you're supposed to be doing. And so today I'm sanding the wing and getting everything kind of trued up and figured out. And then I'll go through. This one is kind of a no-brainer because you know where it is, but the flaps can be a little bit of thought, and they command that. Now, another thing I'll do before I even sheet it or think about it is I will actually come, and hopefully you can see this. I don't know. I went the wrong way. But I think one of the big things is I'll go ahead and I'll actually reinstall the hinges, and they are a fairly tight fit. Now the one, oops, going the wrong hole, Danny. That's what she said. But anyway, it's just, you want to make sure that when you're setting these up that you're not getting these cocked. And that's why it's easier sometimes to put these in, but you want them to be, if they're like this, then they're not straight. That one needs to be straightened out. That one looks good, and they should move freely. Get one that's slightly cocked, then they will act up. Now you got to remember, we're going to be cutting this down. That is the exact length and everything they need to be. They're going to come out just a hair right here, but we want to make sure that we're getting that ready to go, and we'll cut that line in that. And just in case you couldn't see it, basically what I've done here is I'm getting ready to shoot this line through this, and part of it will be finalized after I actually get these sheeted, because I got to add a little bit of material in here, which is not a big deal. And this is going to get shimmed up just a little bit to straighten it out. So I'll add a little bit of material on here when I cap that edge, and that will be, actually looks pretty damn good. You want to make sure that you're going straight off of these. So I'll just add a little bit here and then sand it to it. And I'll show you how I do that. It's not a big deal. There's ways of using sandpaper, doubling it up on end, and running again to actually true up the areas. It's not a big deal at all. Again, this piece will get glued on here. It's a cap because it does have that edge on there, and that will blend it into the deal. And if you look, so like I said, this became an accident that happened with this, but anyway, that was here to be like that, but with that gap like that, it was too much and it was actually interfering. This needs to be actually glued into place on here, and what I'm going to do is after this is sheeted, I will true this up, I'll glue that on, and I will cut this off so that it is actually in fact, I will cut this so it's actually in fact straight. Now it's really not a big deal, and you can do this a couple different ways, and I will actually CA it right to there and put on that, and then it'll be fine. It'll look good. So get that, then we'll clean up some wiring, get some other stuff hung up on there and done, and got a lot to glue in on the nose pieces in there to get that belt beefed up, and I'll do that while I'm doing other things. But anyway, as you can see, the wing comes out looking, it looks pretty sweet. So anyway, I will add a little bit of stuff in here, then we'll go down and get some 2x4 blocks. They need to be If I get two will do it. 2 by 3, and they have to be at least 8. Okay, so that is 1. We're going to burn that a little bit. So we're looking at, they got to be at least 16 inches long. And so you can do that in a lot of different ways. You're going to burn up a lot of this material if you do it any other way than just whatever. You can build it up. You can use foam. I know guys that are doing that. I don't. I just, because, and the reason you know what, I may even try it just to see it. I might tack glue some on to see what the foam tip looks like. But you're going to have to slurry it to get the glass to stick to it. And wood is just whatever, but I will be putting in some deals. So another thing I got to do is before I put the wingtip on, I need to get that kind of in an idea of where it's going to be. Then I may need to make a couple patterns for molds for Lexan, because I am going to put the wingtips in it, lights in it, and I want those in a wingtip. So we'll talk about that more in depth as we get to it. Other than that, the wings are looking great. They will fit up beautifully and we will have no issues. And then it's like I said, the next the piece that will come in will be a straight shot all the way down from here all the way, and it'll actually be 2 complete pieces that come in that actually will sit from here, but I will kick these down is what I'll do. And I want to shoot this line. I want that line completely shot, and I'll burn a little bit of material on that just to make sure that's good, and I will just glue those in place. And this is going to give me the best straight line there is all the way through this to do that. And that gives me also the opportunity to go in, get other things done. I'm going to have this piece that's not, this piece can't be installed yet until that is done. I'm waiting on plywood to show up. But if you look, this line will continue. And what I want to do is just kind of shoot it so it is actually straight. And all of our wood will actually be a straight line from there, so I can actually put it in here and go, and I can work from the wingtip out for now, and then we can actually start getting some other things done. And I do this wingtip procedure a little bit different, and then while I'm doing that, I will glue in the 1/4 by 3/8, get this done, and then we will start and go ahead and put in 2 full rows this way. But we got shims to make, and we got a lot of other little things to do first. Got to label all these wires. They got to be done, and then tie everything up before we get too crazy with it. And how we'll do that is I will actually drill some little holes up here and actually zip tie these in a little bit here and there, and anywhere I can find a hole, just kind of neaten it up. And I will tie them, not every one, but pretty close. So anyway, that's it for today, guys. I'm going to go ahead and start getting this done and try to get a little bit of preliminary sheeting done on this thing while we got this done, and then we'll be rocking and rolling. And then hopefully the plywood come in so I can finish doing all this other stuff. And hopefully we can do this. The other wing has not been done completely. I will do that off camera, but I'm going to do this one so you guys do see it. And I think I've got just enough material to complete this one and get it ready. I will have to order more for the other side. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. See you in Funny Papers.